I'm Coach Mickey, and I'm so glad that you've joined us. And if this is your first time joining us, come on in and make yourself comfortable. And for those of you that join us on a regular basis, I'm so glad that you do. I really appreciate the fact that you support all of our guests. And I love your comments, your questions, and your suggestions of having people on because that's what this YouTube channel is for. And this podcast is to bring in real stories from real people that you can identify with and maybe get a little something, something out of it. And today is no different because I met this gentleman at an event. I was in Atlantic City. It was a martial arts event. And we started talking. And what drew me to him out of a crowd of people was he was in a kilt. And I was like, love it. Love a person that can stand out and just be who they are as an individual. But then the more that we talked and I heard his story, I was like, I've got to have you on my podcast. And what really captured my interest in him and who he is was his quote. And I borrow it. I'm going to give him all the credit for it, but I do borrow this quote. He says, "Your approval is not my goal." So welcome with me today, Mark Dean. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. So I want to jump right in right from the beginning. You and I started, talking, and you had pointed out something that had happened with you physically, and your story was so compelling. I think it would be really insightful for a lot of people to hear it. So if you wouldn't mind just talking about that, that'd be great.
Well, absolutely. Back when I was 19, I'd just started in the martial arts into Taekwondo, and had a catastrophic knee injury. I was visiting another dojo, and I was much younger than the gentleman I was sparring, and he purposefully blew through the back of my knee with a very hard roundhouse. Um, Completely blew my knee apart, dislocated everything from the knee down 90 degrees inward. My kneecap was halfway up the outside of my knee, and the only thing left attached was the hamstring. Had the typical surgery. Surgeon told this 19-year-old that you'll never do martial arts again. You're going to have about a 40 or 50% recovery. You'll always walk with a limp, probably need a cane, and you're looking at knee replacement by the time you're in your 40s. That's a lot for a 19-year-old to hear. That water skis, backpacks, bicycles, my legs were all my life there, just because I was so active. And there's something that I've always kind of kept in my head my whole life that my father taught me at a very young age. You can either let a situation define you or develop you. And I decided to let that develop me. I snorkeled 2 to 3 miles a day with scuba fins. Before I went back to the doctor, he had already released me for PT and such, but I was snorkeling 3 miles a day, 2 to 3 miles a day with the swim team. And when I finally went into him, he goes, "Oh, wow. We don't need to send you to PT. You're doing more on your own than my PT could do." Fast forward, I'm 56 years old. I still teach, compete, and study martial arts. I still have all my original parts, though that may change here soon. We tend to wear them out, but I'm still walking, I'm still running, I'm still backpacking. And you need to be real careful that doctors and big farm and such does not define your future. They honestly don't know enough about you at that point. You need to interview everyone that's going to be in your life that affects your life. I mean, you interview babysitters when they're coming in, because your kids are important. Someone house sits, you interview them. Why don't people interview these physicians and such that you're allowing to cut on you and to put you in a situation that will affect you for the whole rest of your life? Excuse me, I've had other physicians. I went in for an elbow issue much later on in life. And he saw the scar on my knee and he goes, "Oh, well, you shouldn't be doing martial arts. That's going to end soon." And I had my green belt in Okinawan Japanese system at that point. And 4 years later, when I earned my black belt, earned rank, I made an appointment with this doctor, went in, and they said, "Well, you have to have something wrong with you." I said, "Well, no, I just want an appointment with him." And they said, "Well, something has to be wrong." And personality that I am, I'm an ENFP personality type, Robin Williams, George Carlin and stuff. I said, well, I got something leaking out my butt. And so okay, well, we'll send you in. So I get in there and I have my bag with me, and this doctor comes in and he goes, so you got a problem south of the border there? I'm like, yeah, seems there's too many heads stuck up there. And it took him back for a minute, and I took out my black belt and I handed it to him. And he goes, well, what's this? I said, 4 years ago, you told me I'd never do martial arts, that was short lived. Not only have I obtained rank, but the dojo was handed over to me. Be careful what you tell people. If people actually believe every word that comes out of your mouth, you're going to squash a lot of dreams. So interview your surgeons, interview your doctors. This surgeon that I have now, he's very athletics driven. He's like, I'm not just there to alleviate your pain. I'm there to get your function back so you can do what you enjoy doing. When I had my latest knee surgery, one doctor that I went to with one hospital system said, oh, be happy with what you've got, wear knee pads. I'm like, well, my knee doesn't hurt. I just have lack of function. He goes, well, there's people out there that can't even walk. Be grateful for what you got. Well, it could have ended there. Guy's in a white coat. Wow, okay, I need to believe this guy. So I went to another doctor and got a referral to another surgeon. And this is where ego really comes into play. The first surgeon there, huge ego, trying to shut you down. This doctor let go of the ego. And he says, I know what's wrong. I know how it needs to be fixed, but it is out of my skill set. I know someone who can. And that's when he introduced me to who I'm seeing now. So interview these doctors, interview these surgeons, and surround yourself with people that have the same goals and the same vision that you have. There's a wonderful picture that you see these lions walking through the snow, and that's the quote underneath this: surround your people with the same vision and the same goals that you have.
That is so true. We put a lot of faith into professionals, especially the medical industry, and to have something like that said to you at that age, could have been devastating. And the fact that you were strong enough and willing enough to not accept that as the end all answer. And then I have to think about how many people does it really affect that has never even contemplated maybe there is something different. Maybe this isn't the end of my story. And the fact that you went out and researched and found and resonated with someone else that was on the same, like you said, same vision as you. I got it. So during all this time when you were healing, because they were, from what you shared with me, they told me, you won't walk, you won't do this. What was the mindset? What did you have every day that was going through your mind that kept pushing you forward to not accept this as your reality of what they told you?
Honestly, we use the term sensei all the time in martial arts, and it means one who has gone before. Well, there's many sensei in your life, and it's not just martial arts. My father, before I started martial arts, he had already had a quadruple bypass. And I saw him downstairs every morning. He ran about 3 miles a day, 50 feet at a time, back and forth in the basement, in the cold weather. And then he'd go outside and do it when it got a little bit warmer. I saw him there trying to lift what weights he can to get back in shape because the doctor said, oh, you need to take it easy. And I mean, he was to the point where they said, quit watching football and stuff. Your blood pressure gets too high. And here he has this bypass. He was an engineer for GE, which was high stress. And he's down there just pounding the basement floor back and forth. And that was my sensei, the one who came before. Followed his example. Again, surround yourself with people with the same vision. So I'm like, if I can watch my dad do this, I can do this. I'm trying to fill his shoes. So that was the driving thing that just stayed in my head every morning. And those mornings when I didn't want to get up and go swimming, I'd go downstairs to get breakfast or whatever, and my dad would have my scuba fins hanging on the chair. Said, "Isn't there somewhere you're supposed to be?" Um, and the roles kind of reverse. You never know who's watching. My dad then developed cancer later on in life in his leg. They removed his leg from just above the knee down. He couldn't sit for long periods of time, but when I had my black belt test, they rolled a big fluffy desk chair out on the examination floor and allowed him to sit there. He was the first one to ever sit through our test. And he used to tell me all the time, why do you do this to yourself? When when I go up to visit after training, a black eye or a bloody nose or my lips swollen, he goes, why do you do this to yourself at this age? He watched through the whole test. And at the end of the test, I went over and bowed to him and gave him my brown belt, and then thought, oh, I hope I don't have to take that back. I hope I actually got my black belt. And he stopped and he shook my hand. He got up, wobbly, and says, I understand. I understand why you do it. And he took that brown belt around his neck every time he went to PT and said, if my son can go through that, I can go through that. So the same thing I was saying about watching him that pushed me when I was younger, pushed him through PT way later in life. So there's always somebody watching, and sometimes your roles will reverse. I'm trying to fill my son's boots now. He's a staff sergeant in the Air Force. Used to be, he was looking up to me. Now I'm looking up to him. So you've got to let that ego go, but don't let that confidence of I can do this go. One of the most important things you can ever ask yourself on any situation is what's your why? Why are you doing this? When I'm swimming laps, why am I going through this? Well, because I want to walk again. Why am I going through martial arts? Why am I getting pounded? Because I can do this. I want to be better than I was last time. If you ask yourself what's your why, and you're like, because I want this certain person, it's like, no, do this to develop yourself. Your biggest competitor is yourself. You don't need other people's approval to drive you. There's a quote that I have written on my wall downstairs that says, those people that tell you you can't are not showing you your limits, they're showing you theirs. And that's something I try to remember is when someone's really trying to down you, they're typically uncomfortable with what you're doing because it's holding a mirror up in front of them. I don't know if you've ever gone crabbing before, but one of my favorite analogies is if you ever go crabbing over here on the East Coast, catch one crab, you got to put a lid on that bucket. It's going to crawl out every time. He'll be motivated. He'll get out. You catch 3 or 4 crabs, you can leave the lid off because those other crabs, instead of following that one crab's examples, will reach up and grab that crab and pull him back down every time. And they'll just keep doing that. They would much rather pull the other crab down than to follow his example. And all of them are capable of getting out, but they can't because they're too busy pulling the other guy down. And people are like that. And people really need to watch out for that kind of toxicity.
Wow. I just learned something. I love that analogy, and you are so right. You are so right. People will voice their opinions, they'll project what, like you said, their beliefs on you. And we just sometimes we just accept it instead of just being there on our own. I always tell my kids, the only person you're competing with is yourself. Be
Exactly.
better than you were yesterday. That's all you have to do. I said, I'm not asking you to be like anybody else. I'm asking you to be you and just be better than you were yesterday. And again, do one small thing that's going to get you closer to where you want to be in your goals. But I love that
Absolutely.
about the crabs, and you were absolutely so right. And I know you were an instructor, and I know you're in between teaching, but I can bet, and I bet you lunch on it. I guarantee your kids probably evolved and their lives changed so much just based on taking your martial arts experience or really whatever you were doing and then implementing these true life skills, because I think we miss that. We don't teach kids that, and a lot of people, adults, don't even get that. So I mean, that's pretty powerful, and it's very profound. Thank you for sharing that.
A big problem with society nowadays is they have broken apart the family structure. And when you still have, lack of a better term, a complete family, a lot of the males, say males in the family, want to be their son's best friend or gaming partner, not their father. My son will tell you that he came one day and said, Dad, your job was not to make my life easy. It was to prepare me. And he goes, and my life was not easy every time, but you did prepare me, which is why he's such a successful officer in the Air Force. Again, your sons, your daughters are watching. You need to prepare them. You can still be friends with them, but you need to prepare them. Um, he comes back and tells me all the time, he goes, Dad, that one day that you spent with me teaching me how to change my own brakes is why I'm now a crew chief on multi-million-dollar jets. He goes, that lit a fire. So it can be some what you think is a small act. I've done these breaks all my life. It's no big deal for me, but to him, it was huge, and it set his career going. So where doctors and other people and even, fathers saying the wrong thing can really put out that light, a small little act or a small little word can really light a fire as well.
Yeah, what we say to our kids is really important because they take that to heart, and probably more than people realize. And you're right, as as a parent, you're a mentor, and again, you're giving them the tools and the guidance. My son's in college now, and my daughter is long grown, and I've got grandkids. But I always look at that, he'll come to me and he'll say, well, what about this? And I'm like, well, what do you think? I can just give you the tools to guide you, but at the end, the choice is yours. I can't tell you what to do. You're at that point now where you evolve, where what the right choice is to make. And if it's something that just doesn't work out, then, you move on and you use it and you utilize it and you learn from it and you go on to do the next best thing. And you're right. We're there to be mentors and guides, and not be their best friends. I see that too often, and then you see what the product of that is. Just by the people they become.
Right. And we become a lot of times in the dojo, the men and women in the dojo, not just the instructor, but the older people in the dojo sometimes feel that role of father or mother to some of these kids and teenagers that are missing them. I was bullied really bad growing up in high school. I was a band geek and computer nerd when computers were first coming out at a very athletic driven high school. Um, and again, developing versus defining. I was not going to be defined when I graduated. Hey, you remember Mark, the kid that everybody used to pick on? I let it develop me. And some of the people that were adversaries in high school, some of my best friends now. And so in martial arts, you'll see a lot of schools and you hear officers say this as well. We love the fact that you are the people between these kids and them having to deal with us and us deal with them. I try to catch these kids before they either become bullies or teach them how not to be victims. Martial arts benefits both of them. Um, so yeah, we tend to forget that we feel that role as well, and sometimes it's placed on us by those kids, and that's part of the responsibility. I believe being a martial artist is being able to fulfill that role as well.
Oh, you're right. I mean, whatever career that you pick, whether it's like I said, being a martial arts instructor, or in my case, also being a coach, it's a huge responsibility working with these kids each and every day because you learn their story, you learn their family life, and some of them is not really pretty, and you're
Right.
like, oh man. So you step in as that person. At least you can go home and feel as though, what, they've got one person in their life that they could trust or look up to or feel safe with and guide them. And if any of you that is listening that are in those roles of teacher, coach, even as a parent, your job is to create these incredible individuals as they're growing up, and they're looking to you for answers because they're like little sponges, and whatever you say will stick, good and bad. It will stick.
Absolutely.
They will remember that.
Um, I'm sure you've seen that, especially with martial artists and such. After a while, we become this cornucopia of phrases and cliches and quotes. And I heard one the other day that really stuck with me. And this kind of paraphrases it, and it says, live in the discomfort of growth, not in the comfort of doing nothing. Disruption always follows intention. You will feel worse before better, weaker before stronger. So there's mornings when I'm ready to give up on, I train every morning. It's like, no, I'm done. I'm sweating already. I've worked. It's like I look at that board and it's like, nope. If you look at my shoes, I wear these Chuck Taylors when I work out, and it has one written on one toe and more on the other. Because when you get tired and you're ready to give up, your head starts dropping and you see one more. It's like, all right, one more rep, one more squat, one more block I can run. Anyone can do just one more. So it is a constant reminder of, yeah, I can push one more out.
And you're right, because that's when you really shine, is when you're at that point of where you want to just stop or give up. And I don't say give up, because we don't really, when you're pushing yourself, and the only time you fail is when you don't try, you don't do anything. But I do like that fact of pushing yourself, because we can. And I think we surprise ourselves. You do one more, when
Right,
you're like, okay, well, what was I thinking? Why didn't I do it to begin with? But you're right, to have that self motivation. And that's very powerful too, because I think we surprise ourselves sometimes when we do things that we didn't expect that we could do, especially in your case. I mean, coming and evolving from what happened to you physically, and then becoming who you are and getting past all of that, takes a lot of mental strength and also willingness, but also drive. Drive is so important when you are trying to do something, and you cannot allow obstacles to get in your way, whether it's someone's opinions, or something that was said, or something that even something because would you find that too, Mark, that sometimes you have a belief and you're like, why in the world was I believing that to begin with? And then all of a
right,
sudden you snap out of it and you're like, what was I thinking? That untrue thing that you keep telling yourself over and over again, like a recording.
right. The conformity is a dangerous word. And I had a senior director um, at this Fortune 500 company I was working for on a conference call. He and I are great friends now, but at the time it was meant as a dig. He said, Mark, conforming to society's expectations is just not your strong suit. And I said, thank you very much. That's about as accurate as an observation as anyone has ever made of me. So don't let digs and stuff that people are throwing at you bring you down. Sometimes that can be your mantra. Everyone needs to develop that mantra to drive them, that voice in their head over and over, to drown out the negativity of, no, I can't do it. They said I can't do it. No, get you a mantra and chant that thing. So conformity is like, yeah, I'm a huge nonconformist. I don't sugarcoat anything. Sometimes it doesn't make me any friends. But I'm me, and I did not conform to somebody else's expectation of what they want to make them feel comfortable.
And you're right. That really is what society does. It's like fill the, like you said, fill what the expectations are. And I think that goes a long way with a lot of choices that think people make, because they'll say, oh, well, I really should do this, or I need, and I'm like, well, why? Who wrote that guideline? Children don't come with a manual. I don't see
Right,
anywhere on page, 527, it says you must do this. It comes down to, what do you really want? And I think more people should think that way and do that way, instead of trying to filter in with the cattle, and do what's, like society expects them to do. On the good note, on the good stuff. Being you and doing things that are beneficial is always a good thing. So.
if you want to really make the naysayers and those telling you can't uncomfortable, ask this question. Hey, you need to be doing this. I do blah blah blah, and you look at them and you go, so how that's working out for you? I've had one guy plays a lot of video games, and I've got nothing against gamers. It's not my thing, but he's like, man, you're 56 years old. You're in here limping from all of this. Why don't you just take it easy? Sit back, relax at night. And I look at him. I'm like, how's that working out for you? And he cocks his head. I'm like, 350 pounds. How's that working out for you? And said, now, if you want to move, let me know. I'll be your biggest cheerleader. I said, but nah, it's not for me. How's that working out for you? That one question can make a lot of people uncomfortable when you throw it back on them.
Yeah, because they don't know what to do with it. It's
Right,
like you said, it's so easy to project, your opinions and your thoughts onto other people, but when you have to face yourself, that's when all of a sudden you just see all the haywire. You see all the sparks going off in
Right.
their head. Well, it has been so much fun having you on. Is there anything else you want to share or talk about? We got a few minutes, and I could sit here and talk all day with you because I love your insight and I love who you are and your outlook on life. I think it's amazing, and I am so glad that you had time and an opportunity to come on and share all this. I'm going to call them Markisms because I love it. I love everything that you talk about and what you stand for and what you do. I really think you're an incredible person, Mark. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you.
But is there anything else you'd like to share?
Sure. At one, it's funny you call them Markisms. That's what my girlfriend calls them, and she writes them down. She has a little book of Markisms. Saw this quote the other day that really rings true is success is determined by the judgment of others. Satisfaction is determined by you. I live in an old farmhouse and you go, I don't see how you can live that way. Well, it's my satisfaction. I'm happy doing it. My success in life, wow, why don't you have this degree or why don't you have this? This is other people placing judgment of my success on their ideals. Your satisfaction is far more important than the judgment of your success by others. And that's what I would leave with people is be satisfied, be happy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, and also I would like you to thank your son for serving. That's my
I
heartstrings,
appreciate it.
anybody that's in the military. So please thank him for that. And thank you for being such a good dad and raising such an
Well, thank you
amazing
very
person
much.
yeah. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for being with us. I know you got a lot out of this today, and please, please, please take a lot of this to heart. Think about it. This is good information. We can all use this. And again, the most courageous thing you can do is be yourself. And I will look forward to seeing you again. Until then, see ya.
Thank you very much.
This episode was brought to you by keeponsharing.com. They're calling themselves the first truly ethical social network. They'll share back 50% of their revenue with their users, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's free to register, and they never sell your information. You can list your products, events, and content for free. Adult content accounts, be gone. They're fun, positive, and encouraging sites supporting local business. In a day and age where social media sites, even well-established ones, are being brought to light left and right for their questionable and sometimes downright archaic business practices, keeponsharing.com is a well-needed breath of fresh air. While you can share personal content, news articles, or just about anything for fun and profit, the marketplace allows practically anyone to sell anything at any time from anywhere. But on this site, you are the boss. I cannot express how amazing it is that keeponsharing.com shares 50% of all revenue back with the users on top of having a truly transparent, supportive, and clean business model. Check them out. I'm signing up. Will you? Go ahead and meet me on there. Just go to keeponsharing.com. A link will be provided in this episode's description.